Superintendent of the Paulding County School District, and I'm joined here on my right by Mr. Eric Hofstetter, who is our Chief Operations Officer. And among some of Mr. Hofstetter's duties include maintenance, transportation, nursing, safety, but also construction and really the boundary alignment process. It is also Mr. Hofstetter's 50th birthday today.
Thank you.
Eric, what better way to celebrate your 50th birthday than a boundary alignment conversation? But thank you for joining us here tonight. And
one to remember.
We're together tonight to give you some baseline information about the boundary alignment process, as well as giving you an opportunity to provide your feedback. Because really, our first meeting truly is to give you all an opportunity to share with us. Before we start putting anything on paper, any lines on a map, we want to hear from you. And how do you do that tonight? Well, one is, very importantly, you go to slido.com, and that is SLIDO.com. Again, slido.com, SLIDO.com. And our meeting code is 6514. And again, 6514. And as we go through the evening tonight, we're actually going to have a number of interactive questions we're going to pose you, and look forward to seeing your responses on Slido. And our first one right now is, if you could just identify if you're a parent from Moses or McClure. At the end of our program tonight, we're going to go ahead and review these questions and kind of give you an idea of where we're at in terms of the composition of the group, as well as your thoughts and feelings on a number of different initiatives regarding the realignment process. And the other thing I want you is, when you're in Slido, you're going to see that there are poll questions on your right. There's a tab on the right that says poll questions. And then there's Q&A on the left. And as you look at Q&A, these are open-ended responses that as you're going through the presentation this evening, you can go in and provide us narrative responses about the concerns that you have, what we may have not mentioned tonight that we need to know. So as we go through the night, know there's a couple of different ways you can interact with us. One in the Q&A section, which we're going to use all those answers and questions to kind of formulate a frequently asked questions section on our website, but also on our interactive poll. And right now we have 4 responses in. We have 3 parents from McClure and 1 from Moses Middle School, and I hope we have a lot more joining us as we go on this evening. There are a couple other ways that you can interact with us concerning boundary alignment that I wanted to talk to you about tonight as well. The first is, you had to go to this website, Planning for the Future, actually www.paulding.k12.ga.us/planning for the future. This is going to be our repository of information regarding the boundary realignment process. So if later on in the evening or at any time you want to go back, you can check. You'll find all of our presentations we've made to the board. You're going to find the video and the information we share with you tonight. And what's most importantly is we'll provide continuous feedback and updates based on the feedback we've received here tonight. And the other vehicle that you can communicate with us is going to emailing us at planningforthefuture@paulding.k12.ga.us. And whether it's tomorrow or a week from now, you have something you want to share for us, please feel free to email us. That's another way that we can stay connected with you. Again, we're in Slido. Please make sure, if you haven't done so already, that you log in because we are absolutely excited to hear your feedback about this process. The one last piece before we get started is Slido will remain open for 1 hour after tonight's presentation. So if you have something, you didn't get a completed question, or you have an hour from now, you think of something you wanted to share, know that this app and this particular meeting, 6514, will be open for an hour after this meeting. And to kind of get started, I want to thank a couple groups of people. One, our communications department, who produced the video that we're going to show here in a second. But then I'd also like to thank our technology department, because believe it or not, through the magic of television, we are not actually in downtown Dallas at the courthouse. And there actually is not a desk in front of us. We're utilizing some technology here, and just really appreciate those who are trying to make this meeting as accessible to everyone as they can, because we want your feedback tonight. So we're going to start our meeting tonight with a video that kind of gives you an overview of where we are as a district in the realignment process, and then we're going to come back and we're going to share with you additional information and provide more depth. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and show you all a video overview.
The school district's Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, or ESPLOST, has provided funding for a wide range of projects to improve our schools over the years, including curricular materials, technology hardware, and new construction. In 2019, the school district held a series of community conversations giving stakeholders an opportunity to provide input on the challenge of enrollment growth. By a wide margin, stakeholders chose constructing new schools and new classrooms as their preferred option to address overcrowding in schools. A short time later, the school district held a referendum to renew ESPLOST to continue adding new classrooms in areas where the need is greatest. In November 2019, Paulding County taxpayers overwhelmingly approved the 5-year extension of ESPLOST. Two projects now nearing completion are a 16-classroom addition at Russell Elementary School and a 22-classroom addition at Moses Middle School, both in the northeast quadrant of Paulding County. The northeast quadrant of Paulding is where the county is experiencing the fastest rate of growth as new construction continues to bring new family housing in neighborhoods. This new development means more and more families will be moving to our county, and in turn, more and more students will be attending Paulding schools. For those who live in northeast Paulding, bulldozers turned earth and new houses under construction are a familiar sight. Multiple developments are in progress right now, and they will add many hundreds of new homes to our community. And there are more developments that have been approved or are in the planning stage. Growth projections show that several schools already are exceeding their planned capacities or will be exceeding capacity in the next few years. Those schools include Abney Elementary School, Shelton Elementary School, and McClure Middle School. The classroom addition at Russell Elementary School will help relieve overcrowding at Abney and Shelton, and the classroom addition at Moses Middle School will help relieve overcrowding at McClure. The issue now is which students will fill those new classrooms. At those 2019 community conversations, it was not surprising that stakeholders cited students changing schools as the most concerning side effect of fixing overcrowding. But they also acknowledged that adjusting attendance boundaries is the most effective way to balance enrollments among schools, and it is the surest way to relieve overcrowded conditions, keep class sizes manageable, and provide a comfortable learning environment for all students. As the Russell and Moses classroom additions near completion in time for the 2021-2022 school year, the school district is conducting an attendance boundary review with the aim of shifting a portion of students from the Abney and Shelton Elementary School attendance zones to the Russell Elementary School attendance zone, and from the McClure Middle School attendance zone to the Moses Middle School attendance zone. Your voice will be an important part of this discussion, and we appreciate that you have decided to participate in tonight's community conversation. This event will be the first step before the school district begins drafting specific options. Once those plans are drafted, you will again have an opportunity to provide input before any final decisions are made. As always, we appreciate your support for strong schools and quality education, and we look forward to the conversation ahead.
I'd once again like to thank our communications department. Funny story, craziness of live television. Evidently my mic was muted in our introduction. So I just want to tell you again, please join us on slido.com, slido.com, enter meeting code 6514. I'm joined here by Eric Hofstetter. It's his 50th birthday.
Thanks again.
And a couple things also about Slido. Know that once you respond, you can go back and edit that response during the meeting. And also remember, we're keeping it open for 1 hour after the conclusion of this meeting, which we're putting about 30 to 45 minutes, and you can add responses then. To our first Slido poll, it appears 82% of the parents and families joining us tonight are from McClure Middle School, and 18% Moses. I'd like to thank both of you for joining us. And again, just to summarize real quick, this is an opportunity for us to get feedback from you. And one of the things I wanted to share is a little timeline of where we've been with this process. So before we do that though, Eric, why don't you go ahead and talk about the boundary review process?
Okay, well the boundary review process is pretty much exactly what it says. All residents of Paulding County are assigned to a school based on their residential address. Now whenever we add classrooms or when we start seeing enrollment imbalances create, there's times where the superintendent then can direct the staff to go ahead and examine and evaluate the current boundaries for any potential adjustments.
Yeah. So that's what the process we've begun here. Now I want to give you a little bit of history, because I know many in the community were involved in this process. And that is, believe it or not, 2 years ago, the district went out to our community and we held meetings at all 5 of our high schools, really to help us determine our strategic direction in terms of managing growth here in Paulding County. We called those community conversations. And they were a great support to us, and quite honestly, they helped us craft the the SPLOS package that was passed this last year. So that feedback we received about adding new classrooms, the construction of a new school, all that really came and were generated by those 5 community conversations that we had. And again, they really helped us hone in and develop that eSPLOS program that was approved. And I once again like to thank our community. That was approved at a 72% approval rating. So thank you so much for giving us the ability to make these adjustments and changes to our community so we can further support our students. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over here to Mr. Hofstetter.
All right, so let's talk about this here for a moment. Now, the school system, Dr. Otut, has a strong desire to hear from the community stakeholders long before any options are created or even presented.
That's right.
So that's step one, and it's extremely important, and we really do want to hear from our viewers at home and, of course, all our parents. Now, as a result, to help frame that conversation, the school district has 4 guiding principles that we use as we go through the process. And that first guiding principle is what we call prioritizing equitable access to high-quality instruction for all the children. Okay? Our second one is we try to evaluate through a district-wide perspective by considering individual school capacities and student population projections to alleviate overcrowded schools and balance enrollment for now and the future. Our third guiding principle is to minimize disruption to the greatest number of students and families whenever possible. And our fourth guiding principle is we obviously have to comply with federal and state laws, and of course with our own board policy, JBCCA, and board regulation, JBCCA-R, and all the requirements that are placed in there by the board.
Now, for those of you who are watching with us tonight, our second poll question on Slido, again, slido.com, meeting 6514, is going to ask you to select no more than 2 of those guiding principles that you see as priorities as we approach this realignment process. So again, of that prioritize, evaluate, minimize, and comply, kind of give us your feedback. And honestly, right now, looking in the initial responses from our participant, the greatest and number 1 is minimizing disruption to the greatest number of students, and that's 60% responded there. Also, we have prioritizing equitable access to high-quality instruction coming in there at number 2 at about 45%. Please keep your responses running. We'll share these at the end of the broadcast tonight so you can kind of see globally, because again, remember, you can edit your responses, but please, everyone take an opportunity to respond to us, because again, this helps us better understand what is the thoughts of the community.
Great.
And moving on next, one of the most frequent questions we get about boundary realignment, when actually new district lines are put down, we get a lot of questions about choice. What happens? My student's been going to this particular school for 2 years. I really want him to finish that level. Well, in the late 2000s, we actually adjusted our board policy, and most specifically our regulation, which is JBCCA-R, and that really guides the reassignment process. And in that late 2000s, what we did was we actually created a addition to JBCCA-R on students impacted by attendance zone modifications. So when we go through this, if there are available seats after a realignment has taken place, we prioritize those who wish to remain at that school further. So let's say we had 50 open spots available at X middle school. We would take those 50 spots. We wouldn't allow other choice options to apply prior to that. And then we would take our 8th graders first. Then we'd go to our 7th and then our 6th. And any remaining spots left over then If they were needed or we had more people who applied, we would actually go into a lottery type situation. So giving people an opportunity to stay, that's really what the request to remain provision was developed for and how it's utilized. The one thing I always like to stress to all of our parents and community is the district does not provide transportation for any of our choice options. So again, the request to remain process was initiated to provide parents a choice option who may be impacted by boundary realignment. Again, it's a prioritized by grade level 8, 7, 6 in the case of a middle school. And if there are more choice than spots, we would go to a lottery. So again, wanted to let our parents know that there are choice options related to boundary realignment, and that is really a reflection of the board's commitment to our community as well as the district in giving choice to students. Mr. Hofstadter, do you want to talk about some of the secondary criteria we look at?
Absolutely. And I want to remind all our viewers and our parents that all these documents, including the board policy, are found on the Planning for the Future website that they're currently on. And if you'd like to fully read through, and we encourage you to do so. So moving on now, to help frame and solicit the kind of information that our staff uses in order to create options, we've created several criteria to help understand and frame your thinking to provide us that feedback. We have three primary criteria. One is geographic proximity, and again, that's where the school is located, and also all the different transportation routes that go to the school. We look at instructional capacity, which basically means what the school, how many students that the school is designed to instruct, including all the different programs such as PE, art, special education programs, gifted programs, English speakers of other language, connections, and all the other wonderful programs that we offer here in the Paulding County School District. And our last primary criteria, what we use, is projected enrollment. And I would really like to thank the Paulding County Planning and Zoning and Economic Development Office, because we continuously collaborate with them in order to figure out what we project our enrollment to be. And a lot of that has to do with building houses and people moving in, particularly with school-age children.
And one other thing I'd like to share with that, Mr. Hofstadter, is a lot of the work you do too is making projections based on development and like-sized subdivisions, so we can get a calculation of what we might expect to yield, for example, 100 homes, a development of 100 homes, based on historical and similar neighborhoods that you do a white paper on, and I appreciate you doing that for us.
That's correct. Yeah, we use a number of ways to try to figure out
absolutely
how this all works, and so usually we're pretty good. We're usually pretty accurate. So now, those primary criteria are very general in its approach, and for the most part pretty
general.
They are general what they are, yeah. But to help us really dive in and to evaluate the different primary criteria, we've created several secondary criteria to really drill down on the ideas that are really important to our community. And the first of those secondary criteria is what we call safety and traffic patterns. And again, these are all the different routes, including the amount of congestion on the road that it takes, even though it may be closer. Roads, intersections, all that type of thing can really have a hindrance towards a nice, smooth operation of the school. We also look at topography, such as mountains, getting around roads, bridges, and all kinds of other traffic issues. Additionally, we look at safety at that particular campus, and even though the campus is there, how many people is it really designed to hold when you look at things such as parking, parent drop-off, buses, and all the other supporting areas. Our next secondary criteria is what we call previous redistricting. Now, it is the goal of the school district, whenever possible, not to redistrict the same people, the same residents, more than once every 4 years. And I understand it's been over almost 10 or 12 years, I think, since the last time we have been able to do that. So it is a goal of ours, and it's something that we really are mindful to. Third criteria is balancing of special programs. And whenever possible, the school district strives to not create any kind of disproportionate number of special programs at one school over another. That way we're providing more equitable access to all children. Our fourth secondary criteria is our school feeder alignment. And when possible and feasible, we try to align elementary, middle, and high school boundaries all being the same lines. And that's always a challenge. Our next criteria would be intact neighborhoods. Now, these could be subdivisions, These could be homeowners divisions. These could be traditional locations that we just know of as communities. And whenever possible, we try to keep those intact so all those children are assigned to the same school. Whenever possible, we strive to do that. And then, of course, our last criteria is what we call efficient and economical operations, but really that is all the contributing factors that are necessary to be fiscally responsible as a school district to our community.
Right. So we have those primary criteria as well as secondary. And our third question for you tonight on Slido, if you could please check in the poll section, is what secondary criteria is most important to you? Again, is it safety and traffic patterns, balancing of special programs, intact neighborhoods, previous redistricting, school feeder alignment, efficient and economical operations? So please take a second on your Slido. And right now, 53% of our respondents at this point have indicated that intact neighborhoods is a priority to them, followed by school feeder pattern alignment, safety and traffic patterns, efficient and economical operations, balancing of special programs, and previous redistricting. So please, if you haven't done so already, we're going to recap these Slido questions at the end. But again, this gives us an idea of where our community is right now, and this feedback can help us as we approach the redistricting process.
This is great feedback. I certainly appreciate it.
Right. Now, Mr. Hoster, do you want to talk a little bit about the focus areas?
Yeah, let's talk about why we're really here tonight. And tonight we have a classroom addition that was built at Moses Middle School. And therefore, it requires us to examine that attendance zone so that we can look at balancing enrollments. Now, what you have here is a chart, but our focus area tonight is mainly centered, again, on the middle school attendance zone. With McClure Middle School rapidly approaching critically overcrowded status and already having severely congested roads, it was incumbent for the district to construct additional space in the area. Now, in collaboration with county planning and zoning, as well as our own assessment of current school facilities, it became apparent to construct additional classroom space at Moses Middle School. Moses Middle School has the available land and required core areas to construct up to 22 classrooms, which would increase the overall capacity from 675 students to 1,050 students, and thus providing potential relief options to the area, as well as accommodating growth within its own attendance zone, based on our current 4-year projections. And that is what we've done, is we went ahead and constructed a 22 classroom addition at Moses Middle School, and it's set to open here August 1st of this next school year.
Right. And Eric, as we transition to our next topic, I want to again remind our community out there that there are those open-ended questions, and we've already seen some of the concerns coming through, but also it's asking us what we're not thinking of. So as you're listening, as those ideas come to you, please share with us your questions and those concerns. So Eric, I'm sorry, go back to you.
Not a problem. All right, so just to give you some more information here, what you have coming up now is a map of the subdivision information. And again, this is another example of how we work very closely with the Paulding County Planning and Zoning Commission as well as Economic Development Office. Now these subdivisions are primarily focused on our focus area, so they're not inclusive of the entire county at this time. But you can see where we have different markers. Now there's roughly 55 developments that are in some stage of either planning, construction, or known to become planning very soon.
Pre-development.
Right. So what we have here on the orange markers these are developments that are currently underway. They're already building. I think we saw that in the video. And anybody who lives up those corridors, the Ivy Gulch corridor, Cedar Crest, they see it every day, and it's just part of normal everyday life. So the orange markers, again, are those that are currently underway and will continue to build out probably within the next 0 to 4 years. Okay? Our blue markers represent those developments that are currently have maybe submitted plans to planning and zoning and are beginning that process. And we would look to see houses start being built there somewhere 2 to 5 years from now and work towards build out then. And then you have purple markers. Now purple markers here, these have already been zoned for housing developments, but right now we don't have any plans submitted, or from what we understand, there's really no discussion. They're just kind of sitting there for the future. We look at those being more than probably 5 years out before we see anything come through planning and zoning. So the key takeaway here is you can definitely see where the building is and where it's going to continue to sustain over the next several years. And we're going to continue to work with planning and zoning to ensure that we're as prepared and we build enough capacities for as much as possible of what's coming down the pike. Keep in mind, these developments can change monthly. Right. So it's a very living document as we go through this.
And again, like Mr. Hofstetter shared, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Chairman Carmichael as well as the other commissioners. It's been really over a decade since we've been part of the planning and zoning, and we have an advisory seat. Actually, Mr. Hofstetter represents the district at those planning and zoning meetings. And why do we share this with you? Because one of the things we want our community to know is we are in touch with development. Now, can we control development? No. But knowing and having that relationship with our county commissioners allows us to better plan for the future of Paulding County. So again, I'd like to thank Chairman Carmichael and the commissioners, because we became advisory members of planning and zoning just this last year, and it's been extremely beneficial for us to have a part in those meetings. So thanks to them. Now, again, please take this time as we're kind of getting fairly close to wrapping up our meeting tonight to make sure you're putting those questions. We're actually, I'll just read one. I'm going to share a couple concerns with you we've already received. My child's currently living in the same neighborhood as her friends, being separated from them in her school. She'll be going into 8th grade. That's a very legitimate concern. And that's one of the reasons why we added that request to remain process as a board. So know that these that you're sending in, we're receiving them. And again, that will be part of that frequently asked questions section that we're going to be adding to our Planning for Paulding webpage here on the district website. So kind of to wrap up or begin wrapping up, I want to give you guys a timeline of how we're going to approach this realignment process. Our first step was actually to present an overview, much like we did tonight with our Board of Education in November. We followed up in December with an engagement plan, and our goal, just quite honestly, is to engage as many as possible. One, we are in an environment that's like none other that we've dealt with as a district, so we want to find a way that we can connect with our community and not have boundaries of meeting size or anything else, but also to make it something that is convenient as possible for our parents who want to contribute. So know that we presented an overall presentation to the board in November. We provided them a communication plan in December. And tonight is our first community forum. And really, it is an introduction and an opportunity for you to provide feedback. What's next? In February, we'll schedule our second community conversation. And at that point, there'll be an option or options provided for feedback. So that's when you'll actually start seeing a map of this area with those suggestions, and we'll then solicit your feedback once again. Our third meeting in March is an opportunity to take all that information that we received in the first two meetings, come together and present a finalized proposal to the community and receive feedback once again, with an ultimate goal of April bringing a recommendation to our Board of Education to approve any attendance boundary changes. So again, our goal is to engage with you as much as possible in this process, receive your feedback, and help it inform the decisions that we're going to make. So at this point, again, we're continuing to receive those questions and concerns. And if we could go ahead and take a look at just some of those global responses to our Slido poll questions. We'll get those up here in a second. Again, we're looking at 82% of our crowd coming from McClure Middle School, about 18%, still holding true from Moses. Then our second question was about your priorities. And again, minimizing that disruption to students still is that top selection, as well as prioritizing equitable access to high-quality education. And that's coming in at about 51%, followed by evaluate the district-wide perspectives, and then complying with policies. So again, we're still seeing that trend on minimizing disruption to our students. And then we looked at those secondary criteria, and we're still looking at the majority of our respondents, 59%, keeping neighborhoods intact, school feeder plan, school feeder alignment coming in as that second of those priorities at 44, safety and traffic patterns 28, balancing of special ed programs 13, efficient and economical operations at 13%, and our final being previous redistricting. That was the last of those priorities. Now, on your Slido polls, you also have a couple questions about the effectiveness of tonight's presentation. So please, before you log out of Slido tonight, we're looking for the best way to engage our community about this process, the best way we can get information to you and receive feedback ourselves. So please take a couple minutes. The first question is on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate the information and presentation of this attendance boundary review community conversation? And our other question would be, would you like the school district to deliver future attendance boundary review committee conversations in this live stream format? And this gives you an opportunity to log in and say, hey, this is better for me, or as a district, we need to look for another option. And we just really want to have that feedback as we begin planning that February presentation. We have some time, and if we did want to respond to a couple of the questions that we received this evening. So we'll pull this one up. How is the school district working with the Paulding commissioners to prevent overcrowding, again, due to single-family homes being built in the northeastern part of the county? And Eric, I know we talked about it a little bit. Yep. Do you want to touch on it again?
Yeah, no, it's a very great question, as a matter of fact, and I want to reassure that we are working very closely with all the resources that we have for our community. Again, I attend every month. We constantly share information back and forth of all kinds of housing data. We meet with developers. We contact developers. We help develop timelines. We look at different stipulations that are important to school.
Correct.
Of course, we want to be the school district of choice for all who move here. But with that being said, we have to continue to plan for those kind of capacity moves.
But again, we do work regularly with that county, and I appreciate that question. The next one is, how is the school district, okay, we got that one. When will the boundary review be complete, and what school year will it be implemented? Excellent question. Again, we look to complete the process in April, and this would be for the 2021-2022 school year. Next question, are the maps posted the old boundaries or the new projected boundaries, and when will these be implemented? Okay, the maps that are on the website right now are of our current boundaries. What we'll get to you prior to our meeting in February is our initial mock-up of what the boundaries would look like in the realignment. So right now, those are the existing boundaries as they are today. What we'll be bringing to you in February, after we receive your feedback, is those, what would be seen as adjusted, and then we'd receive feedback on those as well. In regards to intact neighborhoods, Seven Hills is split up in elementary. Is there a goal to unite them? And for those of you who live in this community, one, just know that Thursday night, we're going to be doing a meeting that you're more than welcome to attend with parents from Russell, Shelton, and Abney. And so the question here is in regard to intact neighborhoods, Seven Hills is split up in elementary. Is this the goal to unite them? What I would say is that is a possible outcome of the realignment process, but we have to look at all those factors. So of course, that would be in the mix based on what we see and the feedback we receive from our parents, not only in this meeting, but also in our elementary focus meeting moving forward. What do you expect, and this is from David, what do you expect the impact from virtual students and COVID will have on boundary changes? And I don't know that I can get the bottom part of that, but I can answer that.
Looks like future enrollment.
Okay, and future enrollment. Honestly, you all know that this year with COVID has created an environment where we have both a virtual and a, of course, face-to-face student population. Our planning has to focus on bringing all those students back. We have to make sure that we're able to facilitate every one of the students that's enrolled in the district, that's enrolled in those areas. So while we know that virtual has had an impact this year, we also are planning, and we discussed this in board meetings, we're planning to continue to offer a virtual option for our elementary and middle. At this point, we do have to plan with the mindset of all these students be and remaining in our schools and classrooms, but we are cognizant of that. Is the video that just played going to be posted on the county website for review at a later date as well? As from JM, absolutely. We'll get that posted up there so that you can review it, as well as all the PowerPoints, everything else we're using. We want to provide you guys with as much information possible moving forward. This is kind of a choicey type question. If a sibling is already going to the North Campus, could that be part of the consideration to school choice and to stay at McClure? There is, as we talked about, JBCAA.R does talk about the request to remain, and what I would tell you on that particular question is that would be contingent on how many spots were available, and then it would be prioritized based on 8th, 7th, and 6th graders. The yellow markers were indicating communities.
Those were active adult communities.
Active adult, 55 and over communities.
Zone communities.
And for those of you that follow zoning, 80% of a 55 and over community should be 55 and over residents. So we still do have to keep an eye on it. Will the bigger neighborhoods be kept together, or will they likely be split up, i.e. Seven Hills? I would say to you tonight that is pretty much too early. A lot of our bigger neighborhoods are already split up. For example, Bentwater is split up between Burnt Hickory and Shelton. Currently, Seven Hills is split up between Abney and Shelton. So those larger neighborhoods right now are already split up. What we'll be looking at is the feasibility of continuing that, or if we need to rejoin those. So that's a little too early to tell, but again, we want your feedback.
Great questions.
Oh, this is a very good question. Will this change where these students will attend high school? No. Right now, those high school boundaries will remain the same. So just wanted to take a couple questions, and I'm glad to see people giving those questions likes. And know what we'll do is we'll take all the questions we received tonight and kind of group them by category, and then again begin that frequently asked questions section. So as we kind of come to a close here tonight, we kept it to about 35, 40 minutes. I want to remind you, Slido is open for an hour. I also want to remind you again about our Planning for the Future website. Check back frequently for updates. Again, the video, the PowerPoint presentation from this evening will all be there, as well as other data we've been accumulating, like policy JBCCA, as well as regulation JBCCA-R. And also, if you have feedback for the district and you're past that hour deadline, Planning for the Future at paulding.k12.ga.us is available 24/7 for you to write your questions in or comments. So, Mr. Hofstetter,
again, thank you for
happy
tonight.
50th birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
You know,
Yeah, and
great way to celebrate that.
Yep.
And mostly would like to thank our community for coming in tonight.
Absolutely.
We had a nice turnout. We'll keep you informed and look forward for your feedback, as well as talking to you again about this in February. Have a great evening.